You're now tuned into the fourth season of Atypical Voices in Our Time, the official podcast of Chemistry Productions, a media education company. Let's get it started.
That's AVIOT.
So I hope all is going well out there. Finally, we're doing our second episode of this week. And surprise, surprise, there's another episode coming out with me and Tay Stokes. We finally got Sports Talk with AVIOT back up and running. So you should see that at some point this week, maybe tomorrow. But anyways, I am glad to be joining you all. Let's just get into it real quick. So for the first story of today, drum roll, I forgot. Let me look back at my notes. I definitely forgot what the first story is. And I don't know how I forgot it because this is such a great story to be sharing. Eyes of Wakanda. So Eyes of Wakanda, it is a show on Disney Plus, and it is a piece that expands upon, I guess, the kingdom of Wakanda in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm not going to give too much away. I remember I was telling my sister Tay about it, and she was saying she didn't feel that it was promoted very well because she said, well, why wasn't I notified of this? I didn't know Eyes of Wakanda was going on. But I told her about it. Hopefully she watches it. I thought it was very well done. Very well done. Very good show. Zinzi Kugler and Ryan Coogler are both executive producers on the project. And to me, anything that Zinzi and Ryan touch is always good. They just don't miss. They always got it down, and they always manage to tell a captivating story, give a lot of cultural references, and really make you fully immersed in whatever universe they're talking about. Right now, I'm looking for the director of the show because the show itself, here we go, Todd Harris. He's the director of Eyes of Wakanda. The show itself, I thought it had a good storyline. It had a very good vision, and it's all animated. The style of animation to me was a little different than what I'm used to. However, you really get into it very fast. So if you're not familiar with that style of animation, you really, it doesn't really bother you that much. Even my wife, and she doesn't like watching cartoons, but she was like, oh, this is a cartoon. I don't know if I want to watch it. But then she saw it and she said, okay, yeah, this show is it. There's a lot of themes in there that I feel really are good to explore. And I plan on exploring it further in other videos, subsequent videos outside of this podcast that are affiliated with the Chemistry Productions banner.
Okay.
So Chemistry Productions is the parent company of AVIOT. AVIOT's the official podcast of Chemistry Productions. I sound like a broken record. I always say it on every episode, it seems, but I just have to get that point out there. So Eyes of Wakanda, great storyline. Definitely check it out. It's on Disney Plus. There's only 4 episodes, and I think each episode averages about 30 minutes each. And when you get to the end, yeah, your eyes will definitely be open. But I think it's great to explore that and expand upon the Black Panther mythos or the universe. And I really hope that they have a season 2 or they keep on expanding on Black Panther. I'm glad they also didn't make it live action because in animation, a lot of times you can build more of the universe and you could do a lot more. I know the budget the budget probably isn't as big as if you did it live action because you're using real people. All you're doing here is just voice acting. You know, speaking of which, in the first episode, it features a character and she's briefly featured in the second episode. Sorry, I gave that away. But this person is voiced by Winnie Harlow. I didn't know Winnie Harlow, the model, actually does voice acting, and her voice was pretty good with the character. It really was good. So kudos to her for that. With that being said, speaking of culture, I want to get into this next story of Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, I don't know what you would call him. He's a British talk show host, just an annoying nuisance. Sound a bit redundant, but he's been in the news recently because he said that the pop singer, cultural icon Beyonce was culturally appropriating Marilyn Monroe.
What?
So basically, she was in an ad for Levi, and she is paying homage to Marilyn Monroe with the blonde hair and the Canadian tuxedo, that whole getup. And so because of how she was styled, Piers Morgan's going to take to X/Twitter and post, very disappointed to see Beyonce culturally appropriating Marilyn Monroe in her new Levi's ad.
Wow.
And I'm sitting over here like, how, if you're paying homage to somebody, how is that culturally appropriating them? I feel that Piers Morgan just wanted to say something, since Sydney Sweeney is getting so much backlash from her campaign with American Eagle, talking about she had good genes, and we knew what she meant by the good genes. We knew it was talking about her white genetics. That's pretty much why she was talking about, or that ad in general, and why she was okay with talking about her having good genes, a play on the word genes. I think Piers Morgan wanted to combat that. And dude, you're not even American, so why even focus on American stuff? Stay focused in the British world. But I think that's why he wanted to say this comment about Beyonce. And after the Bayhive and other supporters of Beyonce got on his case, he's going to post on Twitter, I would say, I can't believe anyone took my obvious Beyonce joke post seriously, but I forgot the woke brigade have no sense of humor. You knew what you were doing, Piers. You knew what you were doing. If you're listening to the AVIOT podcast on a streaming service, make sure to leave a rating and a review so we can grow our platform. You threw the bait out there and people took it. You probably did think Beyonce was culturally appropriating Marilyn Monroe. And even if she did want to go for a blonde hair look, y'all got to understand, when Black people do blonde hair, that's not cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is like me wearing, any attire that the Irish have, and then going along and trying to speak in their accent and observing their customs and calling it my own.
Yes.
That would be cultural appropriation. Come on. That's a different story. But wearing blonde hair and just dressing up, kind of paying homage to Marilyn Monroe, that's not cultural appropriation. But, people are just going to find, certain people, I should say, are going to just find anything that they can in order to make Black people seem like the bad guy, in order to make themselves seem like victims. Speaking of which, the current U.S. administration, the presidential administration, is planning to reinstall 2 Confederate monuments.
Wow.
And so the president of the United States wanted to push back against the monuments that were taken down due to the George Floyd protests back in 2020, going on into 2021, all that stuff. There were Confederate statues that were taken down. Specifically speaking, there are 2 statues that they want to put back up. One is the Confederate military officer Albert Pike, and that's going to be in Washington. And then the other one is Moses Ezekiel. So that's a monument that was called the Reconciliation Monument. And so that's going to be returned to Arlington National Cemetery near his burial site, reportedly. Here's my thing. You have a certain sect of people out there that love to promote Confederate history. But those same people will say that Black people need to get over slavery.
That's correct.
Obviously, y'all haven't gotten over the Confederate Army losing in the Civil War. Because how are you going to tell one group of people to forget something, but then you can never forget losing? You lost. I remember I was talking to someone today and they were asking me how I felt about these Confederate statues going back up. I don't feel any type of way. If you want to promote losers and you want to promote losing, that's on you. That don't got nothing to do with me. If you want to promote losers, then fine, go right ahead. And it's very unfortunate that you have people so stuck on what they wish was. You have to move on in life. You can't just be focused on, oh, well, I wish this happened. Move on.
Yes.
It's not changing. You want to keep changing it back. You still want us to be in chains. You still want to be able to order Black folk around. We're in a different time period. Even back then, you couldn't order Black folk around. Like, they won't promote it much, but you had a bunch of enslaved Blacks that were rebelling, that were poisoning their white slave masters, that were burning down plantations. They don't want to promote that, because by promoting that, you're going to empower the descendants of those people. So no, we do not care. If you want to put up Confederate statues, go ahead. But that also tells me something too about when you remove something. A lot of these things are symbolic. If you can remove a Confederate statue only to put it back up, to me, That was a symbolic victory. It never held any weight in the first place. The times when these Confederate statues were removed, they should have been destroyed. That way, you would have never had to worry about them going back up again. Those statues should have been destroyed. That way, it's not a symbolic victory. It is legitimately set in stone that these monuments are no longer available. They're no more. Just like I remember they had the Black Lives Matter Plaza. They had that big lettering in Washington, D.C. And then with this current presidential administration, they broke that up and they got rid of that. Once again, symbolism, empty symbolism. If something can be removed, it does not hold any weight. So what would hold weight is if you establish something and it cannot be removed. That's how I feel about that. So speaking of this current president, I saw a funny story. My wife sent it to me, actually. So the rapper or the hip hop artist Latto was offered a $2,000 discount at a jewelry shop if she could explain how both the 45th and 47th presidents of the United States had the same parents. So the jeweler was asking her, hey, how do the 45th and 47th president of the United States have the same parent?
$2,000 off if you can give me right answer. Cool? Okay. The 45th president of USA and the 47th president of USA, they both have the same parents. How is that possible?
They both got the same parents. The 45th president of the USA and the 47th president got the same parents?
Yes.
How do the 45th president and the 47th president got the same parents?
It's a mystery.
They got the same parents because God made us all. And we all got the same parents. Because we're not on the 47th president yet. That's why.
It is. You want to know the answer? So the 45th president was Donald Trump. And the 47th president is also Donald Trump.
And she could not understand. She couldn't get it. She's like, I don't know. We're all children under God or something like that. She said something funny. But they're the same. They have the same parents because it's the same person. I said, man, it must be nice to be rich and not have to worry about this. But even if you are rich, you should still have a baseline understanding or baseline knowledge of who the president of the United States is. I think once you start getting into the 30s, the 20s, okay, you can forget. But at least till now, right? We have the 46th president would be Biden, 44th is President Obama, 43rd is George W. Bush, and so on. So this is my generation. This is me living the presidents that are coming in through my lifetime. Yeah. I think before Bush was Bill Clinton, and then before Bill Clinton was George H.W. Bush, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure I look it up. Presidents of the U.S. numbers. Let me not be talking about Latto and then I can't get the thing right.
Oh, no.
I think I'm correct, though. And I am. Clinton was the 42nd and George H.W. Bush was the 41st. Ronald Reagan was the 40th. And I know George H.W. Bush was Ronald Reagan's vice president. And so that's how you get that. But Latto, really, girl, I know that you are a good hip hop artist, but let's tighten up. Let's tighten up more. Hip hop's not going to be there for you forever. And I believe that you got to know more than just your craft. You got to be a little bit more well-rounded than that. All right. With that being said, let's get into updates. So for updates, like I said earlier, when the show just started, my sister Tay and I, we have a sports podcast episode, Sports Talk with AVIOT, that's going to be coming out after this episode. So I'm going to try and put this episode out as soon as possible. And then the next day, it'll be Sports Talk with AVIOT. So if you are into sports, make sure to check that out. Me and Tay, we have a good discussion. I actually recorded that episode before I recorded this one right here. We have a good discussion about women's basketball, have some tennis talk. You know, Tay is a really big football head, so we talk about football. So I think you'll really enjoy that one right there. Outside of that, please make sure to support Chemistry Productions. the media company, the parent company of the AVIOT podcast, on all podcasts, on all social media pages, whether it be YouTube, Tumblr, Lemonade, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're on all those platforms, Threads, Blue Sky. We're not on Twitter/X. I actually deleted our account on there because I do not like what Twitter stands for. I don't like the vitriol and the hatred and the bigotry that goes on there. So I refused to let this platform be a part of that. So we're not on there anymore. But make sure to support Chemistry Productions. We really want to build a community, talk about different media out there, have discussions, really be profitable, gain traction, so that we can take part of those proceeds and help out different groups that are marginalized, that truly need the help, especially in this day and age where you have everything going on in the United States, even in the world, where you have so many people that are without hope. I always look and I say, how can billionaires just sit by and watch these things happen and just collect their coin?
And now for a quick commercial break.
Hey guys, as you can hear, we are unapologetic in our opinions. We may be politically incorrect or possibly wrong, but don't knock us for being ourselves and saying what many are too afraid to admit out loud. Anyways, if you have any thoughts or questions about our show, email us at chemistryproductions@gmail.com. That's K3MISTRY productions@gmail.com. We'll be sure to address whatever you have to say.
Billionaires fund a lot of these wars and a lot of these activities that cause these people to be disenfranchised and to be hurt, to be harmed. So my wish is that this company can truly take off. Chemistry Productions can truly take off. Even the AVI podcast, make sure to support us on streaming services. But my wish is that we can truly take off, be profitable, and then we can use those proceeds to help out people who really are in need. So there is that. Now let's get into our topic of the day. So for the topic of the day, I saw this story on Threads in which this woman was talking about meeting her husband. So she gives a story about how she went to the gym and then she saw a guy. She asked her brother about the guy. He said he knew who he was and she was looking for him. She slid into his DMs, as they say, meaning that on social media, you might see that they have a inbox or they might have a mailbox and you message them. And she checked in and they hung out and now they're husband and wife. And all it took was for her to approach him. And the post that had posted about this, exchange was saying that maybe it'd be a good idea for women to shoot their shots out at men. Maybe it'd be a good idea for women to approach men and ask them if they want to date. Now, I see how this could be somewhat difficult because you do have men out there who are truly a threat to the lives of women.
That's correct.
And women approaching men, they may be afraid because they don't know if their life is going to be in jeopardy. Obviously, if you're in a safe situation, and safe is up to the discernment of the individual, then I don't think it's a problem to approach men. If you really want someone or you truly want something in life, then you have to go for it. And we've been taught that men have to be the aggressors, men have to approach women all the time. That shouldn't have to be the case in every situation. Now, from personal experience, I approached my wife, and that's where we are today. But my wife was also very forward. She asked for my number. That's not something that usually happens, right? So I think that it's cool to not necessarily adhere to traditional gender roles in the case of, well, men, you have to approach the woman, you have to court her. Society is changing. The world is changing. Not everything is what it used to be. I do think that certain traditions and certain ways of living should be preserved because they got us to where we are today. I don't think we need to always adopt something new. If something is working, why change it? If something is working well, why change it? Right? Something could be working, but it's not necessarily the best way to go about things. So if it's healthy and it's working well, why change it? But I believe that in this day and age, it should be fine for women to approach men. And I think that by doing so, you could lead to a lot more situations where people are truly happy. They're in relationships and they don't feel alone. We have a lot of people nowadays that say the dating market is so hard. You have a lot of people nowadays that say it's hard to truly find a partner who cares. But maybe you saw someone who could possibly care, but you thought that they should approach you and they might not have seen you, or they might have been nervous themselves. People don't talk about how men are nervous to approach women as well, because you have some women out there that will embarrass you and that will turn you down and make you feel little, make you feel small. So there is that. That's why you have these online dating apps. You have these digital spaces where people meet up, and now that's way more popular. Back in my day, that wasn't a thing. Like, me and my wife met before Twitter was even invented. No, not Twitter. Before Tinder was even invented. So I don't have any experience with the online dating, swipe left, swipe right. I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. I'm just saying I don't know how I'd fare in that environment. People pretend to be who they want to be. You have stories where things work out. However, you have a lot of horror stories where they don't. People putting up fake profile pictures. What's that show? Catfished. That's really a thing because it happens quite a bit. So I say all that to say, if you feel it, then act on it within reason, right? If you feel it, if you really like a person and you really want to try to approach them, try. Do it in a acceptable way. Don't harass them. Don't be inappropriate. But try. You never know what you're missing out on. All right? With that being said, pretty short podcast episode today. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week. All right. Peace.
So go a little something like this. That's AVIOT.